Hey guys, Brad Gilmore here. Want to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, Walker Texas Lawyer. If you or a loved one have been injured in an accident, whether that be a car, truck, motorcycle accident, or some kind of other issue, hit up Walker Texas Lawyer at 713-552-1117 or walkertexaslawyer.com.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Matthew McConaughey.
Brad Gilmore.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Chris Tucker is in the building. Chris Tucker, good morning to you.
Hey, Brad. Good morning to you. How are you?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The legendary frontman of AC/DC, Brian Johnson, joins us right now. Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Brad. What looking to talk to me, funny lad.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat.
Brad Gilmore! And we're so excited to be joined by another exhibitor that you're going to be able to find at the one and only Comicpalooza coming up very, very soon. He's joining us right now. He is the namesake, quite literally, frontwards and backwards. He is Fred of Derf Designs. Fred, how you doing, man?
Hey, Brad, I'm great, man. How are you today?
Good, man. Talk to me about how excited you are for Comicpalooza coming up here. It's right around the corner. It's always an annual event that every Houstonian should go to at least one time if they haven't before. So talk to me a little bit about your excitement level for Comicpalooza.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always excited, even long before I was ever an exhibitor and started doing what I do. It honestly, I'm an older nerd, so nerd culture and stuff was not nearly as widely accepted and as quote cool as it is these days. So it's an incredibly fun experience. The Comicpalooza folks put on just an absolutely fantastic show. There's something for every type of nerd, quite literally, whether you're a comic book nerd, horror nerd, anime nerd, even car nerds, now that they have the Tasha Showdown. So it's an awesome time, and it's one of my favorite events of the year, because obviously I'm always obviously selling to my crowd, right? But Comicpalooza is like my crowd. They're my people. I love talking to them all day long and getting excited about all the stuff that they're excited for. So it's my favorite weekend of the year, hands down.
So tell me about Derf Designs. Kind of give me the origin story, if you will. Every comic book has an origin story. So give me the Derf Designs origin story.
Yeah. So, long story short, I always say my very two first loves were comic books and hip hop, and hip hop and streetwear are kind of intrinsically attached. You quite literally can't have one without the other, right? And so I started doing it kind of just for fun. I've always drawn and done graphic design and that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest issues, if you're a nerd and you enjoy shirts and that kind of stuff, is the quality on either side is going to be a little bit on the rough side. So you're either going to have a really great shirt that'll last forever with kind of a terrible print on it that might wash out after, maybe one or two washes, or might start to fade right away. Or on the other hand, you get a really great print on a really cheap and very thin, not so great shirt that's going to fall apart after a handful of washes. And obviously, if you really love the shirt, you want to be able to enjoy it as much as possible. So I decided, if I can't find the quality and I can't find the type of stuff that I'm looking for, and a lot of that was kind of mixing, Houston culture and nerd culture together. If I couldn't find it myself, I said, why not? Let's just make it myself. So I take a lot of pride in making sure that the quality across the board is really good. So the shirts are really well made. They're all made to last. You're never going to buy a shirt from me in one size, buy it again a year later and find out that it doesn't fit or it's too thin or it falls apart or whatever. All my shirts are printed locally here in Houston as well, because why rep the city if I'm using a sweatshop and God knows where to make my shirts. So I pride myself on using local guys as well. So
Okay, so when you're designing something, like, so give me like kind of this from script to screen, if you will. Like, do you say, okay, I
sure.
see like you have a Ninja Turtles inspired one behind you, or an
Yeah,
X-Men?
Oh, wait, hold on, right here.
There you go.
We're
Or an
reversed.
X-Men. So where does the kind of idea come from? Are you just saying, oh man, I need something Ninja Turtle related, or do you say, oh, you know what, the manhole cover could be a cool homage to the city. Maybe I could do.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of everything. So, like a perfect example, when I decided to come up with the X-Men one, it was not long after Disney Plus had launched, and I was rewatching the old X-Men cartoon from when I was a kid, and I thought to myself, why have I not combined these two? It's three perfect letters, and so I stopped what I was doing, grabbed my iPad, cranked up the volume on the X-Men show, and kind of knocked that one out. With the Ninja Turtles one, that one kind of came. I had just done the kind of lettering and swapped it over from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to the dope city of Houston. And like you said, with the little details in the manhole cover, I thought, well, how do I combine that? How do I add some elements of Houston in there? So it's a little bit hard to see behind me, but there's little details. It says, HTX 713. And actually, I hid my name in the sewer cap as well. So I've always been a big sucker for little details, which is one of the things that I really love about streetwear and that kind of stuff. Same goes for comic books. On any great comic book cover or cartoon panel or whatever, you're almost always going to see a really cool hidden design or a hidden little detail. There may be a street name named after the person's parents or whatever, or an artist that they really love. So I'm just a big fan of those little details, and so I love to kind of put that stuff in there. And sometimes I'll just be watching something or reading a comic book, and something strikes me, and I have to, just like with the X-Men thing, I have to quite literally stop what I'm doing and and start drawing and break out the iPad. So
Yeah, no, I mean, whenever creativity strikes, whenever that inspiration strikes, you gotta capitalize on it instantaneously. Tell me how you feel about X-Men 97.
It's wonderful. I mean, I'm always a little bit hesitant about continuing a story. And it really seems to me like the creators really, really understood the X-Men comics rather than the cartoon. And so it's got that perfect balance of everything we've loved about the X-Men cartoon, but much more accurate to the comics. I've always been a big fan of Cyclops, and in the original cartoon, they kind of made him out to be a little punk who was always chasing after Jean, and battling with Wolverine, which is a thing right in the comics, but not nearly to the level of the cartoon. And that first 10 minutes of the first episode of X-Men 97, they really did right by my boy Cyclops. They showed just how powerful he is, how intense of a fighter he is, and rather than having him pining over Jean, they did a really great job of showing that it was a mutual pining, right? The two of them are absolutely obsessed with each other. There's quite literally nothing they would not do for each other and their family. And obviously Storm was my very first crush as a kid. And that moment when she walks in to fight the Sentinels and the sand underneath her turns to glass. There's that little bit where they're like Omega level threat detected. It was really good to see a lot of those mutants that they always kind of downplayed their powers. And I'm sure it was probably a holdback of the animation, right? There was only so much you could do in the 90s. So it's been really cool to see all those different kind of underrated mutants get a whole lot of shine. So,
So
I'm impatiently waiting to watch the series, the season finale tonight. So
I know, man. You and I both. You and I both. I love what they done with it. Let me ask you this, just a few more things for you. But for Comicpalooza, you said before you were an exhibitor, you were just someone who went out of the love for the nerd culture, the comic cultures, the city, so on and so forth.
absolutely.
This year when you walk in, if you could put, take your Derf Designs hat on and just put the fan hat on again, right? What are you looking forward to most seeing in person, just from a fan perspective?
Sure. I guess one of the only downsides to going from fan to exhibitor, right? So taking off that fan hat and putting on the Derf hat, the hardest part for me is not getting to enjoy the cosplays as much, and cosplaying myself. I don't know if you've ever cosplayed, but it's really difficult to get work done in a costume, right? So one of my favorite things, honestly, is the cosplayers. I love that creativity, all those little details, like I mentioned. So it's really cool to see the cosplayers and that kind of insane level of creativity that they come with. There are times where I literally have to like stop a conversation with a customer mid-sentence, and I'm gonna be like, hold on, I need to stop this cosplayer, and I'll grab the cosplayer and be like, I need to see all the little details of your costume. I'll be like, just give me 1 second, please don't leave the booth. So that's definitely always been one of my favorite things about Comicpalooza, and just kind of conventions in general is definitely the cosplay. That's my favorite part. I love to see people who don't normally kind of have the luxury of, they don't have the luxury of getting to be creative at their job like I do. And so to see people, you've got all kinds of people cosplaying all different kinds of stuff. So it's really cool to see people who don't normally get to express their creativity. I know a lot of cosplayers, it's like their favorite weekend of the year. They've got a costume lined up for each day. And so honestly, that's one of my favorite parts is really getting to see people's creativity and all the really cool and interesting stuff that they can do. So, and I get a little jealous because I don't get to do it anymore.
Give me this, because you mentioned it earlier, and for time's sake, we'll make it a shorter list. Give me your top 3 comic book characters of all time and your top 3 MCs of all time. I'm putting you on the spot.
That's like picking your favorite child.
Normally I go top
anybody,
5, but
No, I'm glad you gave me top 3. Obviously Spider-Man, hands down, like a lot of folks, was kind of my first introduction. So I adore Spider-Man. One thing that's really always kind of stuck with me about Spider-Man is he's the only character that really tries to have it all. And he generally does. He gets to have the wife and the family and all that, but it's always of much greater consequence to him, right? And he's just a normal everyday kid. Eventually, obviously, he becomes a normal everyday guy. But he's a lot like your average comic reader. He's just a big dork who's just trying to do the right thing with the powers that he's been given. I would say after that, I'm going to try to maybe go less superhero. One of my favorite characters is Yorick from Y: The Last Man. Really interesting, like post-apocalyptic characters. He's a bit of a dumb average guy at the beginning of the story, and once you get, I think it was like 100 plus issues in, he really learns a lot about the world and all of the stupid things that he thought generally aren't actually true, and he becomes a much better man. And it was one of the first stories that I read that I really enjoyed because it wasn't your traditional kind of superheroes. Other than that, I would probably have to say I'm going to cheat a little bit here and pick another Spider-Man. Thankfully, I have these days an endless amount to choose from, and that's going to be Miles Morales.
Sure.
Miles Morales being, Black and Puerto Rican kid, from New York, really kind of spoke to me. when you're Puerto Rican, which my dad's Puerto Rican, there's not a lot of superheroes out there for us, right? Most superheroes tend to look like Peter Parker, right? So it was really cool to see a kid from a neighborhood that was similar to the neighborhood I grew up in. There's no superheroes eating, arroz con pollo, and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool to see that. And, I really love the current movies and that kind of stuff and all the comics as well. So I'd say that would be my top three, just kind of right off the bat, as far as comic book characters go. Man, top three MCs. That's so hard for me, man. I'm in no particular order because I don't want to get flamed for it.
Sure.
I would probably have to say Nas. Nas was just, I was in high school not long, or right around the time that Nas had come out, and he was in high school. And so it was really impressive to see a 17-year-old kid come out with what's still to this day one of the most iconic rap albums of all time.
Oh, man.
And I'm a sucker for a good, storyteller. Ghostface Killah, obviously, another, absolute classic of a storyteller. My inclination is usually to say Raekwon next, but I don't want to cheat the way I did with two Spider-Men in my list. So I'll pull somebody kind of younger and newer out who's also a phenomenal storyteller. And obviously, his name is all over the news right now, but Kendrick Lamar is definitely one of the truly great, I guess you can't really call him a younger guy. I think he's in his 30s now, but of that kind of younger, I guess more freshman class compared to the OGs that I mentioned. He's one of the absolute best storytellers of all time. Even though I wasn't really a big fan of his at first because the different voices, I was like, what is this guy doing? But once I really sat down and listened, there were just so many different layers to it that I was like, man, this kid's a genius. And, now obviously he's a grown man with an incredible career. And, I think your average hip hop head usually has him in their top 10, unless they're a bitter old fan. But I like to be one of those older hip hop heads who tries to listen to newer stuff too. So
what's amazing about Kendrick, not to get off on a tangent, but when you mention Nas, Ghostface Killah, Eminem, and I'll even throw Ice Cube in there, there are elements of
absolutely
all rappers within Kendrick's style and ability, and you can hear the influence there. And he's definitely one of the best.
Absolutely.
He's definitely
it's really cool to see those younger rappers who you can, rap is such a relatively new genre of music as far as kind of, over long-term period, right? So, it's like the guys who came up when I was younger, they were doing stuff that nobody had ever heard. And it's so cool to see now all of the influences from the people that I grew up listening to. There's a lot of newer rappers that sound and have bits and pieces of this and that. And out of that, they've carved their own kind of mixture and turned into their own style. Whereas back in the day, there was nobody who rapped like, like Nas or Eminem or even Jay-Z. It was like, oh my God, this is all new and fresh and different. So it's cool to see those younger guys kind of carve their own path and to recognize little bits and pieces. Like I said, I'm a huge nerd, and I love to see kind of all those little homages and stuff. So I know people hate it, but I love when younger rappers quote old rhymes that I love and know and kind of, put their own twist on it. So
if somebody wants to, they can come see you in person at Comicpalooza.
Absolutely.
And that's where you can get a Derf design from the man himself. How can people reach out? How can they get in contact? How can they see your designs?
Sure. So obviously, much like Comicpalooza, I'm always popped up all over the city. So I do lots of different markets and events and that kind of stuff throughout the city. At Comicpalooza, I'll be obviously booth 1424. Don't quote me on that if I missed it, but I'm pretty sure it's booth 1424. But if you can't make it at Comicpalooza, I always send folks over to my Instagram, which is going to be Derf Designs. So that's DERF Designs. And obviously on my website, derfdesigns.com. You can also shop right from the Instagram. My website is listed there. And I'm generally kind of all over the city at least once a weekend, doing local pop-ups and markets and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite things is getting to really see people and talk with them. And my favorite thing about kind of vending in person is always when I catch somebody not really paying attention. They catch a little glimpse of one of my shirts and they're like, "Oh!" And I make the exact same face right back at them because now I'm just as excited. So I really love to just kind of talk with the people and hang out with everybody. And Comicpalooza is it's the biggest nerd party of the year, and I get to do that for 3 days straight. I'll be exhausted and my voice will be gone on Monday as it normally is after Comicpalooza, but I can't wait to just chop it up with all my fellow nerds and streetwear lovers and just have a great time at Comicpalooza.
Well, I can't wait to come meet you in person and see some of the great designs that you have. Fred.
Yeah, come on by the booth, man. You don't have to pay for anything. Don't worry about it. Everybody else has to pay, but you're good.
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to. But I can't wait to meet you, man. Thanks so much for taking the time, Fred, man. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Brad. Thank you so much, man.